continue on the theme of knowledge and that which we think we know. Now, what I'm also saying in my book is that all of these religions, and this is absolutely true, are basically the first attempts at human psychology for the masses. And so what they're doing, they're speaking through illustrations, cultural illustrations, whatever's befitting to a certain culture and a certain time when those things were written. These people have worked a thing or two out about how our human psychology works and how to avoid pain and suffering and upsetting people and all this stuff, and how to find the best possible human experience. The best possible human experience, to feel absolutely the best, isn't by feeling ecstatic and joyous and all this, because you can't stay there forever, because it's vastly too energy inefficient. It uses up too much energy. So the body's going to have to come down to homeostasis. So the most best possible version of what it is for a human being is to find this level of homeostasis, which basically is just the body living. And living in a way like Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, in their ignorance, before they acquired knowledge and wisdom of the opposites of good and evil. Just the opposites. Because when we have opposites to think about, we have to use our powers of cognition. And most people don't have too many powers of cognition, so therefore they get confused, they get cognitive dissonance because they can't work stuff out, and then it leads to them being fear-based or angry or unhappy, confused, and all different sorts of things. So what I'm saying is that it is in actual fact the introduction of our egoic minds, which is the realm of Satan. That is the realm of evil, because if we were automated creatures, ignorance is bliss, like lots of people are. You know, there's something to be said for being as daft as a brush. If you are absolutely ignorant, then you won't be finding fault with things. Because, it's just the way it is. You just do this and you just do that. And you follow the rules and regulations and the advice from the manipulative governments. And then you go through your education, your indoctrination, and then you go and work as a cashier girl. I've just been speaking to this girl. That's all she could ever do in her life. But fortunately, at this moment in time, they still need people to fill those jobs, which gives her a purpose in her life, because she could never get a job in any other realm, because she doesn't strike me as being the most intelligent. And so it's kind of like, well, when robots are taking over the vast majority of the jobs, the only people that you're going to need are the ones that can think outside of what the robots can do. And so that seems to me the very cleverest of people, which you need to deploy your humanisms, which robots can't do yet. And so ignorance being bliss, lots of people do find a level of contentment in their ignorance. And it's people that think very, very deeply and profoundly that often end up going crazy. Or they become very reclusive. Like the vast majority of philosophers I've ever read about, they were insular people. They lived in isolation, and they had no time for anybody else, because nobody else even remotely grasped what they were speaking about. It's like Schopenhauer. he used to have these little poodle dogs, and the locals affectionately called his poodles Mrs. Schopenhauer. So I saw Schopenhauer with Mrs. Schopenhauer today, because every day at a certain time he used to do his ritual of his walking his dog, and every day, you know, go for a coffee at a certain place, and you know, all this sort of thing, and then they spend the whole entire lives alone. So fortunately, I'm not as bright as people like Schopenhauer. I'm not as overwhelmed in my thoughts of those people. I can actually escape, and you know, I do this via my meditation, because these people wouldn't have learned about how to meditate, and so they wouldn't have that release. Now, that's a nice edible, but it's just gone over, you see. Dry. But that one over there, I think I'll just steal this one anyway, from someone's lawn. And that one is nicely edible, but it's already been half consumed. I've got to get myself a camera now. Mushroomy with the essence of aniseed. A bit of an essence of aniseed there. Anyway, where was I? So what did I want to say? I wanted to say about the different levels of cognition. When we go through life, we learn something, and we're at a certain level. We're in a certain concentric circle. We have got no idea of the intelligence outside, other than the fact that we may have an awareness that people are vastly more intelligent than us. But when we go through life and we learn something and we know something, then what we tend to like to do is to have what we think we know reiterated, and we're always looking towards confirmation bias. And that's why from time to time, when you know people have come on my side, they've been drawn to a certain video, and then all of a sudden I'll hit them with another video in another variety of genre, this, that and the other, and then people start feeling conflicted. They're getting cognitive dissonance, because what they are hearing doesn't comply and fall into line with what they think they know. And what they think they know is what they think to be knowledge, when in actual fact it isn't knowledge. Knowledge in all arenas is transitory. And so what I have come to realise in my life is that the best possible adoption to take is that of an open-minded, and never to be satisfactorily asserted with any particular thing. Always keep yourself open-minded for change to occur. And this again gets back to when I'm learning about certain mushrooms, fungi, I will find something which I know what this is. This is one of these because I've seen these in this book, and you know that's what this book says. But the books, right, they've got one picture of a particular mushroom, or they have 3 or 4 pictures of that mushroom, one from the top, one from the bottom, one cut down the center, so you can see from these facets. But remember, that's one mushroom, and it doesn't include the whole range of variety that mushroom can be, from its very earliest stage of growth to its full bloomed state, and from the young ones to the old ones. Again, because it's so old, it's difficult to tell, because it would have lost lots of its characteristics. It will be very different to the young ones. And so when I'm looking for mushrooms, I like to find the mushroom in lots of its growth states, from young to old, because then you've got more information. Because what happens is, if we see a mushroom, I know what that mushroom is. I've seen pictures of that in the book. You've not seen enough, because on other occasions you can find a mushroom which looks almost identical to that one at that stage, and you go, fuck, good job I didn't just go eating that one, because this one's deadly poisonous. So we have to be very, very careful. And this is why when we are amateur mycologists and we like to forage natural foods, for a long time we best stay with what is conceivably the safest. And there are quite a lot of mushrooms and fungi that you can eat without getting yourself into real trouble, because there are no close lookalikes. And what these people who produce these fungi books often try to do is show you something which is similar, that's poisonous, which you could get in trouble with. And even when they do this, it's kind of like, with a stretch of imagination, you could think that's the same mushroom. But they do have a lot of variances, and we should never jump to any conclusions. And so, when we are thinking that we know something, we should avoid at all costs jumping to conclusions, even when we have seen something which has replicated itself on many occasions. Always bear in mind that could change, and there could be something with very similar circumstances which would look like what you've seen before, which in actual fact isn't. And so I contemplate this, and I go, well, how do we avoid this? And it's very difficult to avoid until you've proved yourselves wrong on many occasions. You see, in recent times, when I've been looking at the world very closely, I've discovered that there are no dead certs. There are no dead certs with anything. And so there is quite a large arena for variance and for error. And so if there is a potential for doubt, for instance, let's just say with a deadly variety of mushroom, you have to take into consideration all of the attributes of the mushroom. Then you have to take into consideration the areas they like to grow in, and then if you found a particular mushroom which is said to grow, say like one mushroom is said to grow on grass verges or in this, succulent sort of grass, because I think I could say that I very, very seldom, if ever, found one of these field mushrooms like in a wood or growing out of a tree, or because they don't do that. Lots of these things have a specific sort of terrain, but like if you've got a destroying angel or a death cap, one of the amanitas, in their early stages of growth, they would look very similar, identical to many of these field mushrooms when they're coming out their ground in their unformed manner. And it isn't until they open out and you can see the colour of the gills, and maybe you can see the vulva's got a membrane on it, and you can see different characteristics, then all of a sudden you can go, no, that's because of this. And so we should never jump to conclusions. We should always look for as much information that we could possibly find and cross-reference so many things. And even then, we have to still remain partially sitting on the fence, never being convinced. Often what we have to do, we just have to allow our judgment to succeed the doubt and the fear. At some stage we have to rely on our judgment. But for instance, if you're out and you're starving and you're living in the wilderness and you come upon some mushrooms that you seem to remember were edible, but you couldn't really be sure, well, it's a good idea just to continue going hungry, because in that circumstance it may be your last meal. But with other things, then you take a chance on your level of assessment. And I speak to people that whom I speak with in a therapeutic way, and I express that sometimes you've got to rely on your own judgment. You can't keep looking for other people to tell you what to do, or to impress upon you what they think you should do, premised on the knowledge that they seem to think they have and you seem to think they have. It's like when people go to see varying therapists. The therapists vary so much that they can say very, very different things. And so it's a case of, well, there you go. You know, there is no one size fits all with this thing. So what you have to do going to see a therapist is you have to take all this information and then intuit what feels better for you. Because if your intellectual mind, the ego, is confused because of the enormous amount of information and conflictory information, then you just allow your intuition, your higher self, the heart, the intelligence of your gut and of your heart, because there's an enormous amount of neurons in the gut and in the heart, people. Neurons are not just a phenomenon with the brain. And so if we become more secure with our intuition because we have nurtured it, we've embraced it, and we have observed it, and we assess and we remember if any time our intuition has been wrong, and it's been probably dangerously wrong. I mean, doubtless there would be times, and that's the thing about the intuition. Your heart can be telling you one thing, and your mind will be telling you another. Your mind can be telling you one thing, and then your stomach will be churning and cramping, and that's telling you another. How many times have we experienced when we consider that we're going to do something, and we say to ourselves, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to go and do it, and then you've got this conflict going on? It's not a cognitive dissonance, it's a visceral difference. You've got the difference between how your heart's feeling and how your stomach's feeling. How your cognizant mind is generating certain hormones to tell you to go for it, but then there's an unconscious fear which is creating cortisol, which is telling you that you shouldn't do it. And so this is the thing with being a human being. It's not easy. And you know, this is the whole thing about being a sage, being a guru. Because at the end of the day, when we are super wise, it's best not to say anything at all. It's best not to really engage with anybody. Because even if we are giving what we know to be very sound advice, it can be interpreted wrong. It can be received wrong. It can be acted upon wrong. And then someone would say, my guru told me to do that. And then the guru says, well, I never actually told you to do that. I said that you might want to try this and try doing that, but that wasn't what you did. You assumed that by trying this and doing that meant that, and it doesn't mean that. And so we have to be really, really careful. And when we look then at our own psyches, and for one in a million that does, by the way, and but when we study our own psychology and our own physiology, and we have listened to our minds and our bodies, our hearts and our viscery and all the stuff, when we've done this for years and years, and we've made a reasonable assessment of how things work, then we become more confident in our actions, and we tend to rely more on our intuitions. And so that's the whole thing in relation to becoming a spiritualist. If you are endeavouring to discover the nature of the universe via your intellect, you'll never do it. You will never ever do it, because the universe is supernatural. The fiction of the universe is a material thing. And so if you are an adherent to cosmologists or scientists, quantum physicists and all this, well, they're only looking at one slice of the pie. Whereas if you are an open-minded, open-hearted, open consciousness person, then you are dealing with the supernatural phenomenon en masse. And within the supernatural phenomenon is the phenomenon of materialism. And so when you become spiritually endowed and expansive in consciousness, then you can see many of the concentric circles within that. And so when we look then, scientists have just discovered this and scientists have discovered that, the first thing a spiritual person will say is, I don't trust that. Instinctively, intuitively, I don't trust what you're saying. Because knowledge is transitory and it's very faddy, and these scientists like to shoot their mouths off about something or other because they're all hunting for a Nobel Prize. They've all got their motives in the wrong arena. They're all looking for the Nobel Prize, and that's why they're all very, very competitive, very dismissive of others' papers and this, that and the other, and they always want to be first, they always want to be the man, and it's a very, very bitchy environment. And but you know, even when we look at science mathematically and you look for a certain level of empiricism, we have to know that it's only empirical as far as the human dream is concerned. It's only empirical as far as the cosmic dream is concerned, because it's all a dream within the mind of God. When you come out into being in unison with the mind of God, knowing that your consciousness is just a smaller version of the main consciousness, and you can intuit and you can feel and know a certain amount, but the reservation is that you know how little you know, and that is the most powerful of things when you wake up to your spiritual enlightenment, how little you actually know. So always be exceedingly reserved and very, very cautious about what you think you know, because this paradoxical universe has a way of turning what you think you know completely on its arse. So what I've done in my book, I've looked at all the phenomenological experiences that I've had. And my metric has been my intellect, my cognition, my experience of a human being. And when you find yourself in a realm whereby you no longer believe in the material world because you've seen so many phenomenological things which look exactly like the real world, only it turns out that they're not this real world. They were, for all intents and purposes, a real world in another dimension of our consciousness. And yet when you were there, you had no physical body, and you would suffer no pain, and lots of the laws that apply to this dimension didn't apply there. And so you have to be very, very skeptical about this one, and realize that mostly what we're doing, we are building our own prison and our own illusion. And we're listening to too many people with their fears and their suffering and their projections and, you know, any number of things. And so, finalising now on this chapter of my book, I have to compile what it is that I'm actually saying, what it is that I've actually come to know, how is it that I've come to know this, why is it that, you know, I think and feel in a way, what's happened to my psyche, how has it morphed and changed and evolved, at what stage did I start to rely on my intuition more than my cognition, so many things. And all I found myself being able to say, trying to express this and that, and using this as an instantiation and that, and I bring into it the Tao, I bring it to the Buddhist Eightfold Path, I bring into the equation Kabbalah, I bring into the equation varying religions, human psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and any number of phenomena that the human being is endowed with. And I'm like, well, all I can say is that at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure now that I am dreaming. I'm pretty sure that this is Maya. Just like the Buddhists have been saying for thousands of years, it's just a variety of dream, because I've had other experiences where I have felt and seen something that is as equally real as this. Only it always feels like being more real. You've got this thing that was more real. You know, what actually goes on? Where do we go when we experience something which is more real than this? And that is a very perplexing thing. And so, of course, I'm still, you know, looking into that, how things, in some instances, under certain influences, things seem to be more real. And there's lots of varying varieties of ways in which we can shift our consciousness. And when we do this, then we find ourselves in a very peculiar position. And as I am always saying, because there's always someone, oh, it's because of drugs, you've took too much drugs. And I've had many of these experiences without anything. Just with breathing, just with exerting the body, just when your mind is in a certain realm of maybe heightened stress or something, and you dream and things are presented to you in your dream, the answers to your issues. And so it is like there is something that knows every single thing that you're doing, like guardian angels. There's certainly something that goes on, and what I'm actually working on now, and I'll start to do more videos of it, is I'm working on more on the mind creating my own reality by directing my state of consciousness along with my heart and all my senses into being and receiving a certain something, manifesting, because I've been doing that for many years now, but I'm starting to get more deeply into it. For instance, this little squirrel that I got, 2 days before that little fella arrived, I was kind of like just dreaming in a meditation, which is the best possible place to do it. I was speaking about to myself, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had a pet squirrel? I wonder where I could get a pet squirrel from. Would I take one from a nest if I had the opportunity? Or would I just pick one from the floor? And I was like, I think I'd pick one from the floor. I wouldn't take one out of a nest because I wouldn't want anything to happen to it and then it'd be my fault. But if there was a situation whereby I came upon one, then I would help it. And 2 days later, that happened. And so, you know, we can do these things. How you doing, dude?
All right, mate. Got a funeral in here at what?
There you are. Yeah, okay. No, cheers, mate. Yeah, good one, man. You?
Yeah, good, mate.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the next sort of things I'm going to work on, so I'll let you know how it goes. Alright, catch you later.